is yung, okay, wala na ngayon. Okay, good naman pala. Okay, let's proceed with adjustments to cash. So adjustments to cash, we all know that our goal for FS presentation is to come up with the quality of reporting. Now, for FS presentation in relation to cash, or also related to other balances in the FS, our goal is to meet the principle of faithful representation. So our goal is to come up with the correct balances of those accounts that are going to be presented in the FS. Otherwise, if they are not correct, we're going to violate the faithful representation or faithful reporting. Now, to achieve that, we have to look for adjustments. For cash, we have to consider those 5 items: undelivered check, post-dated check, stale check, and bank compensating balance and bank overdraft. Okay, so to define those items, let us start with the 3 checks. So for undelivered check is a check that was drawn. When we say drawn, literal, parang hindi not literally drawn na drawing, hindi yan. When we say drawn, something has been written, an important thing on that check, the amounts, the details, then that check had been recorded by the issuer as a payment, but was not delivered to the recipient. The perspective that we have for undelivered check is on the perspective of the issuer. If we are the issuer, or if the entity that we are making the accounting is that entity, siya yung issuer ng check na yan. We don't have an accounting problem for undelivered check if we are the recipient. Because in the first place, we did not receive that check. Our only concern if we are the issuer. Okay? If we're the issuer. Now, it is drawn unrecorded. The only defect of that check is that no delivery had been made to the recipient of the check. However, take note, recorded. It is recorded but not delivered. The effect of that check and the aspect of recording as if we have paid per record. But for actual sense, we did not have an actual outlay because no actual payment has been made because of the undelivery or non-delivery of that check. So our goal to adjust our cash is to reverse the journal entry that we have made to record such payment. Okay? Kindly raise hand if nagigets ako dyan. Okay. Okay. So thank you kung nagigets ako dyan. Next, we have post-dated check. A post-dated check, it is a check that was drawn, recorded, but in contrast with undelivered checks, na-deliver yung check na yan. But in contrast again with undelivered check, we have 2 perspective now with post-dated check and also with stale check later. Now with post-dated check, it is considered as payment on the part of the issuer. Ibig sabihin, yung nag-i-issue may obligation, may liability na binabayaran. And or as collection on the part of the recipient. Meaning, yung naka-receive ng check, asset on his or her part. Kaya nga, collection on the part of the recipient. What is the problem with post-dated check? Why is it that we can consider it as adjustment to cash? Because it bears a date subsequent from the date of issuance or receipt. Anong ibig sabihin yan? If I receive a check today, November 25, supposedly I can anytime, starting today, anytime I can present the check to the bank for encashment. So the bank will encash that check in favor of my request. However, okay, here's the however. Post-dated check includes a date, a specific date in the face of the check that temporarily limits the encashment of that check. So for example, I receive a check today, November 25, but in the check, there is a date, December 31, meaning I have to wait until December 31 before I can encash the check, because no matter or how many times I present the check before December 31, hindi may encash yung check na yan. Okay? Pero if December 31 comes anytime starting December 31, I can. Okay? I can present the check for final encashment na. Okay? So take note of that. We have two perspectives, payment on the part of issuer and collection on the part of recipient. Because accounting will depend on the perspective for the post-dated check. Okay? So kindly raise hand again if na-gets ako sa post-dated check. Okay. So now, what is the sense or what is the question na pwede nating ma-formulate? Bakit? Yan ito yung question dyan. Bakit mayroong post-dating? What is the sense of post-dating? Ano yung purpose? Okay. The purpose of post-dating is for the issuing company to have ample time na magkaroon ng sufficient fund yung account to which that check will be charged against. Kasi we have a law. I know, I hope this is related to the post-dated check. We have a law, the anti-bouncing check law. Mahirap kasi na we issue a check, then that check bounces. It is a violation kasi under a law. Now, to avoid that, if an entity issues a check and is not confident that the check will be encashed immediately upon issuance, anytime upon issuance, yung ginagawa, nagpo-post date. Okay? To have an ample time for to make sure that the account will be sufficient enough to cover the amount of the check. Okay? So, yun yung purpose. Hindi naman talaga, tawag nito, parang hindi naman talaga defective yung mga checks na yan. Meron lang parang konting limitations why ginagawa natin silang consideration as adjustment to cash. Right? Next, we have stale check. Stale check, it is a check drawn, recorded, delivered as payment on the part of the issuer, as collection on the part of the recipient. Again, take note, two perspective again. Yung stale check na record, drawn, recorded, and delivered the same with post-dated check. Yun nga lang, the problem with stale check, it remained uncashed longer than the encashment period by the bank. Usually, the normal banking practice, 6 months yung encashment. You may search in the internet kung ilang months or yung period for the encashment. But usually 6 months yan yung pag-search ko. Okay. So anong problema sa stale check? Okay. Yun nga, hindi siya na-encash. So yung perspective natin, recipient and issuer will depend if the amount involved is material or immaterial. So later, in the next slide, I will explain more sa accounting side na. Okay, sa accounting side. Yun lang ha. Take note, undelivered checks, drawn but not delivered. Drawn, recorded but not delivered. Post-dated, drawn, recorded, delivered, pero may post-date. While stale check, drawn, recorded, delivered, but not encashed. Yan lang yan. So here's the rules for Rules on undelivered check, post-dated check, and stale check. Ayan. So for undelivered check, always take note, we only have one perspective. Issuer. So the part of the issuer, we are paying we're paying an obligation, therefore a liability. Since it is drawn and recorded but not delivered, when we record, we debit liability account and credit cash or cash in bank depending on the policy of the entity on what to use or on what account is available for cash. It is either cash or cash in bank. Now, since undelivered, the effect is per record we made payment but in actual sense wala talagang payment na nangyari. Why no actual payment? Because no actual cash outflow. Walang cash outlay na nangyari. Okay? We still have, kumbaga, we still have the cash. Hindi siya lumabas because of non-delivery of the check to the recipient. So since walang actual delivery and we have to come up with the correct amount of cash, we have to adjust our records by reversing. As an adjusting entry, we have to reverse the journal entry made. We debit cash or cash in bank and credit liability. As simple as that. Again, on the part of the recipient, wala po tayong problema dyan. If we are the recipient, wala tayong problema sa undelivered check because in the first place, wala naman tayong na-receive na check. Next. By the way, nag-gets ako doon, kindly raise hand. And also, kindly tell me if mabilis akong magsalita ha, babagalan natin. Okay. Post-dated check. So, proceed tayo sa post-dated check. Sa post-dated check, we have two perspectives. We have issuer side and we have recipient side. On the issuer side, again, we are paying liability. Again, post-dated check, drawn, recorded, and delivered. The only problem is with post-date or a date subsequent from the issuance date. So per record, we make payment. But in the actual sense, no cash outflow na nangyari. So therefore, no actual payment. So to do that, yung initial entry na debit liability and credit cash or cash in bank, we need to reverse to nullify the effect of payment. Okay? So debit, cash or cash in bank, and credit liability. Okay? Next, on the part of the recipient, this time we received the check. So on that part, our journal entry made is to debit cash or cash in bank and credit receivable, thinking that we have received a cash because of the receipt of the check. If di ba sir sabi mo before kapag check automatic cash, bakit yan yung mga undelivered, post-dated at stale check? Nagkakaroon tayo ngayon ng qualifications na hindi sila magiging cash. Take note what I have told you in the previous discussion na for a check to be considered as part of cash, kailangan good check. Meaning, walang mga problema. Walang mga problema. Demandable, encashable upon presentment. Ang tatlong yan, hindi naman Okay? Lalo na si post-dated check. So, I hope nahabol ako doon. So, our goal is to adjust our record. So, to nullify the effect of collection because there is no actual cash inflow, we debit receivable and credit cash or cash in bank. So, simply reverse lang the journal entry made. Okay? Next, stale check. For stale check, we have 4 perspectives. Naging 4 kasi nga each perspective ng issuer and recipient will have 2 sub-perspective depending on the amount involved if they are, again, material or immaterial. Let us start with the issuer side, the one who pays a liability or has the obligation. Let's start with immaterial. By the way, before I proceed, let me emphasize what does it mean by immaterial or material. What does it points out? Material or immaterial pertains to the materiality of an amount. Okay. As per confirmation earlier with the morning class, I was able to know now you don't have yet discussion about materiality because you're just taking up currently the confras. Diba? Conceptual framework and accounting standards. Tama ba? Ngayon pa lang yan. Baka iba sa inyo.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So may nag-yes, sir. Okay. So as an overview na lang with the materiality principle. Yung materiality principle ganito. Materiality depends on professional judgment. Anong ibig sabihin? In practice, it is part of the management policy to set up what amount is material or not. Ano ibig sabihin ng material or not? Kung magkano yung amount na pwede nating i-disregard na hindi maapektuhan yung FS. For example, it also depends kasi on the size of the business and in the amount involved. Now, for example, 1,000 pesos. A 1,000 peso deficit is immaterial for large or big companies. But for small and micro entities, 1,000 is very material. Nagigets ako dyan? Kindly raise hand if nagigets ako dyan. Okay. Another example, when we round off an amount. Example ko sa morning is yung 2.9 and 3.0. Okay? Okay? Diba? 2.9, if we're going to round off 2.9, 3.0 na yan, equivalent to 3. Diba? So sabihin mo, sir, 0.1 lang naman yung difference ng 2.9 sa 3.0. Then why not equal na lang sila sa 2.0 at 3.0? Kasi nga, value or numbers matter. Another example, sa grades. Diba? Sa grades nyo. Lalo na ngayon that your college, your grades are in numeric equivalent na 1 point something, 2 point something, 3 point something, ganyan. Unlike before in your high school days na 98, 90, ganyan, mga 90 plus, 80 plus, ganyan. Okay? Especially some of you are hoping for Dean's List, di ba? You're applying for Dean's List, 1.5 will differ with 1.51. Will differ with 1.501, 1.509. Nagets ako? Kasi even the slightest difference will hinder you from qualifying to be a Dean's List. 1.5 could let you qualify. But how about 1.51? 1.509? Nagets? So materiality, okay, again, is on the professional judgment. Sir, how about in the problem solving? How do we deal with materiality in problem solving? Now, in problem solving, an amount should be stated as to its materiality. Dapat may information na the amount involved is material. Kahit na lang yung simple terms na material or immaterial, ganyan. Sir, what about kung wala talagang information? The problem is very silent. Aside from the information provided, all other information is silent na. Okay? Now, take note that we are computing for balances. And for FS presentation, every amount, no matter how small, will have an impact on the FS presentation. Now, if we're going to, if our goal is for faithful representation, dapat lahat accounted for. Okay? And there should be disclosures, required disclosures. Now, yung ating materiality dito, assumption, kung hindi provided sa problem, dapat material. Kasi nagdi-deal tayo sa cash eh. We always assume the worst. Assume na lang the worst. Kasi kahit yung worst, if we're going to consider a coin, sa harap is worst, sa likod, ito, parang ano, positive side. Worst, ano ba kabaliktaran ng worst? Hindi ko alam yung exact. Okay? So yan. I hope you're getting my point. As much as possible, problem solving will provide materiality, the assumption to the materiality. Pero kung hindi, yun nga, assume material. Okay? Assume material. Okay. So let us start with issuer side. So sa issuer side, whether it is material or immaterial, our initial entry is to debit the liability and credit cash or cash in bank. The adjusting entry will depend on the assumption ng materiality. If immaterial, we credit other income. Pero kapag material, we credit liability. Okay? Pag immaterial, other income yung credit. Pag material, liability ang credit. Ano yung assumption ng immaterial? Bakit other income? Kasi nga supposedly magbabayad tayo, but because yun nga parang na-thank you yung liability natin, okay? As if nag-benefit pa tayo dyan. Okay? Nag-benefit pa. So other income. Pero kapag material, we expect that the holder or the recipient of that check will run after us for the payment. Okay? Another thing, yung idea din ni immaterial on the part of the issuer side, hindi sasabihin the issuer will say, it's no longer my fault. Bakit naging stale ang check? I have no issue on my part. If to pay that the amount involved in the check, I am willing to pay. Okay? I am willing to pay, but it is no longer my fault. Bakit hindi na encash yung check? So, pupunta na tayo kay recipient. So, walang problema kay recipient pag material yung assumption. Kasi nga, in one way or another, you are still expecting that the issuer of the check will pay you. So, expect that the recipient will still have the receivable. Okay? Unless if the amount is immaterial, talagang na-thank you yung sanang pambayad sa kanya, that's the time na magde-debit siya ng loss due to stale check. Okay, yung adjustment is to debit loss. On the part of the issuer, income siya kung immaterial, pero kay recipient, loss. Again ha, pag immaterial, another view, kasi nga kasalanan ni recipient. Diba? 6 months is already an ample period for the encashment. We cannot avoid that there are lapses of an entity for encashment kasi nga hindi lang naman yung cheque yung concern niya when it comes to the day-to-day activities of an entity. Samot-sari yan. Okay. So, nag-gets ako doon. Kindly raise hand kung nag-gets ako doon sa stale check. By the way, yung recipient side, I'm not sure if there are some reference materials aside from the discussion material that we have in Canvas. Okay? I'm not sure if there are other reference materials that discuss the recipient side for stale check. Kasi yung alam ko lang, yung what I've encountered is on the part of the issuer. But that is that's my point on the part of the recipient. Okay. Next, we have bank compensating balance and bank overdraft. So asan na yun? Dali lang. Ayan. So yan, for bank compensating balance, what we are ginawa ko itong example sa inyo eh. Again, bank compensating balance, minimum maintaining balance in a bank account. But what we are focusing here for bank compensating balance, it is an amount being maintained for the account under a borrowing arrangement with the bank. Okay? Ibig sabihin, pag naglo-loan, yun yung focus natin dito sa bank compensating balance. There are instances that an entity will have arrangements with the bank for a loan, then the bank will require for the enrollment of a bank account. Then that bank account should be maintained with a minimum balance. Okay? The treatment and accounting for compensating balance will depend on the conditions attached to that compensating balance based na sa contract. Then we have bank overdraft. Si bank overdraft represents a negative balance in the cash in bank account. Okay? It is a debit balance. That negative balance resulted excess issuance of check against the deposit balance. Kaya nga naging debit balance siya. Sir, kindly expound more bakit siya naging negative at bakit siya naging debit. Okay? We have to look sa relationship ng depositor and bank when it comes to recording ng deposit na yan. On the part of the depositor, if you have deposited an amount dun sa bank, you recognize an asset on your part as the owner of that deposit. So on your record, naka-debit, naka-asset yan. Okay? Signify that as asset. But generally kay bank, upon receiving your deposit, the bank recognizes liability. The bank recognizes a liability to secure that deposit. Kasi nga, binigay mo kay bank for safekeeping. So the bank has the obligation for the safekeeping and in return, to return that amount if you demand for the withdrawal of that amount deposited. Okay? So since asset kay depositor, talagang nakadebit siya. Pero yung perspective natin kay bank overdraft, sa perspective ni bank is a debit. When you enroll an account in the bank, when you deposit an amount, the bank credits. To increase your balance in the bank credits your account, signifying that the bank is increasing its obligation on your account. On the other hand, to decrease your account in the bank debits. Kaya nga, pag naging negative yung bank account, overdraft ng tawag dyan. Especially yung mga drafting or checking accounts natin. Kaya nga, pag negative, debit balance. Pag positive, credit balance. That is, again, on the perspective ni bank. Nagigets ako? Kaliray sand. So yan ha, kindly take note the perspective and the relationship ni depositor and ni bank. Sino yung nagme-maintain ng asset and positive debit? Sino namang nagme-maintain ng liability and positive credit? Okay? Kasi different, magkaiba yan. Though you're just accounting one item, which is the deposit. So rules on bank overdraft, a bank compensating balance, and bank overdraft. So si bank compensating balance will depend sa kanyang withdrawal restriction. Okay? Usually, restrictions for the bank compensating balance are legally restricted. Diba? I have questioned you before kung sa inyo ba yun? I'm not sure kung sa inyo yun. If the bank compensating balance, I mean the minimum balance can be withdrawn. Sa inyo ba yun? Nagtanong ba ako sa inyo niyan? Hindi, wala ata. Baka sa morning ata yun. Okay, nonetheless, let's proceed. Usually, legally restricted ang condition sa tawag nito sa bank compensating balance. The reason for that, bakit siya restricted? Yun nga, the purpose of the bank compensating balance is to maintain the account or for the account not to be closed. Okay? Yung treatment for the bank compensating balance under a legally restricted condition will depend if the related loan is short-term or long-term. If short-term, we treat that compensating balance as part of the current assets, part of other current asset na cash held as compensating balance. Not part of cash but cash held as compensating balance as other item of current asset. Pag long term naman yung loan, needless to say, non-current lahat yan. Non-current investment, non-current asset na. But sometimes, okay, there are agreement na not legally restricted si compensating balance. So meaning, pwede siyang ma-encash anytime. Ma-encash, ma-withdraw anytime. So therefore, the accounting treatment is part of cash and cash equivalents. So automatic part of current assets. Okay? So take note of that rule for bank compensating balance. Then for bank overdraft, si bank overdraft generally no offset allowed. No offsetting allowed. So therefore, our first accounting treatment for bank overdraft, pag nakakita sa problem solving, current liability muna. Okay, current liability muna. Let's qualify in our mind that this should be a current liability. Okay? Then doon ka na mag-proceed ng wait lang. Okay. Then doon ka na mag-proceed ng exemptions. Again, generally, offsetting a bank overdraft in the balance of cash is not allowed. Meaning, hindi pwedeng ihalo sa computation si bank overdraft. Kaya current liability siya. Except two bank accounts are maintained in one bank. Example, we have Unity Bank. I'm not sure if Unity Bank is an existing bank. So for Unity Bank, I have two bank accounts in Unity Bank. I have checking account 1, checking account 2. Checking account 1, positive balance. Then checking account 2, overdraft, meaning negative balance. Depending on the cash management and depending also on the bank agreement, okay, it is allowed to offset both accounts in a net positive balance. So therefore, we can it is allowed to deduct such overdraft from the total cash. So meaning in the FS, we can present the bank account in Unity Bank, yung checking account natin, as sabihin na lang natin si Unity Bank 1 million. Unity Bank checking account pala, number 1 is 1 million. Tapos yung checking account 2 is negative na 500,000. So parang allowed siya na i-present sa FS na Unity Bank checking account 1 na 500,000 na lang. Net of overdraft. Pwedeng ganon. Okay? Pwedeng ganon. Another exception, amount involved is immaterial. So ayan na naman, may materiality. Overdraft is always assumed material. Pero kapag may information na immaterial yung amount, allowed ang offsetting doon sa mga accounts na may positive balances. O diretsoy na natin doon as deduction as part of the total cash. And last, management policy based on Philippine Interpretations Committee in connection with PAS 7. Ang sabi dyan, if form an integral part of company's cash management, then included as part of the component of cash and cash equivalents. Meaning, part siya ng computation ng balance ng cash and cash equivalents if such arising of the overdraft, okay, is part of the normal day-to-day transaction of an entity. Okay? Kasi nga everyday may transaction sa entity. So, siguro, normal na lang na magkaroon ng overdraft. Okay? So, allowed kapag part of management policy. Guys, can you still hear me clearly? Loud and clear?
Yes, sir.
Why did I ask? Kasi nga malakas ang ulan dito sa amin. Ngayon lang, malakas ang ulan. Baka kasi hindi nyo ko marinig na eh. Okay, sige. So, sabi nyo naman, loud and clear pa. So, let us continue. By the way, nagets ako doon sa compensating balance and bank overdraft. And raise hand. Ayan. Okay, so let's proceed. Investment of excess cash. So investment of excess cash, when you become CPAs in the future, hopefully, when you have career in the public practice, when you became an employee of an entity, and you become an accountant, we cannot avoid that such entity meron silang tawag nito, excess cash. Okay? Those excess cash could be invested. Okay? Could be invested for purposes of additional cash inflows in the form of interest. Okay? Additional financing, additional cash inflows on the part of the investing entity. Now, investing excess cash could be part of a company's cash control to avoid that cash being idle. Ibig sabihin ng idle, yung parang stagnant yung cash. To avoid that cash to become stagnant. So in order for the cash to be usable, okay, more usable, kahit parang wala pang intended, specific and intended purpose for that cash, mas maigi na yung excess cash na yan, i-invest temporarily for additional cash flows. Yun nga, in the form of interest. And another thing is for the company to avoid such cash being part of, being subject to embezzlement or theft. Kasi alam niyo naman, pera, masilaw. Okay? Masilaw sa mata yan. Okay? Masilaw sa mata yung cash. Diba? Kindly raise hand if agree kayo dyan. Okay? That is also the negative side of cash being the most liquid asset. Sa positive side kasi nga immediately accessible siya, pero sa negative side pwede siyang ma-subject to theft or embezzlement. But I'm not promoting such practices. I'm not promoting such practices. Okay. So how do we account or how do we treat such investment? It's like we're going to wrap up everything from the start. Yan. So the concept, the classification and treatment will depend on the previous concepts that we have for cash and cash equivalents. So an investment of excess cash will be part of cash and cash equivalents depending on its maturity. So kapag 3 months or less, part of current asset siya, part siya automatic ng cash and cash equivalents. So again, yung maturity period less than 3 months or less. So 3-month rule, parang sa cash equivalents lang. So part siya ng cash and cash equivalents, automatic part of current assets. Pero kapag maturity niya is more than 3 months, but within 1 year, other short-term investment siya. Other short-term investment, but automatic part of current assets. Pero kapag long-term investment na siya, ibig sabihin, more than 1 year na yung kanyang maturity period, non-current asset na yung classification. Okay? Ayan. So take note of that na lang. Okay? Take note of that. Maturity period. Hanapin palagi yung maturity period. Finally, let us proceed with sample problems. Okay. Is it visible? Readable pa? Kindly raise hand if readable pa.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sige nga, I will test your readability of ano yung pangalan ng company?
High speed.
High speed.
Ah, high speed. Okay, good. Kala ko hindi na nababasa eh. Anyway, sabi dyan sa problem, high-speed company reported the following items of cash and cash equivalents for the year ended December 31, 2019. So we're given with several items from cash collections on hand down to travel fund for business purpose. Okay? Sa mga reference book, makakita din kayo ng ganyan. Okay? Now, yung requirements, the amount to be presented as part of cash equivalents, part of current asset, and part of non-current asset. So how do we deal in solving this one? How do we solve this one? My technique is tinatawag na, okay, sabay-sabay walang iwanan. It's not my technique, not originally mine, pero ina-apply ko minsan. Okay, natutunan ko kasi yan nung nagre-review ako. Formal review ko during the CPA review. It was introduced to us para mas mabilis daw yung pag-solve. So the name of the technique is sabay-sabay walang iwanan. So how do I present sabay-sabay walang iwanan? Ganito yan. It's like we are hitting 4 birds, hindi lang 2 birds. 4 birds with 1 stone. Diba? Kasi 4 yung requirement eh. Kung dalawa lang, 2 birds. Kasi 4, so 4 birds. Har, sir. So sige. Let me explain my solution. Okay. Starting with the cash collections on hand. Based sa problem, no other information that relates for cash on hand. No other inclusions, no other exclusions, and no other restrictions. So therefore, cash collections on hand will be automatically part of cash, and being part of cash, part na rin siya ng current assets. Okay? I hope nagigets yun. Next, for cash in bank, BDO savings account. Yung 1,500,000. Si 1,500,000, walang other information provided in the problem. So therefore, automatic part of cash, automatic part of current assets. Diba? Mas mabilis yung analysis. Okay, next. Cash in bank, BDO checking account number 1. No other information with BDO checking account. Walang ibang related account na negative balance. Okay? No other restrictions. So say 1,200,000, automatic part of cash, automatic part of current assets. Next, cash in foreign deposit, restricted. Take note my term ha, may apelido siya, restricted. Okay? Tapos meron siyang information na in Philippine peso equivalent. So no more need of conversion. Okay? No more need of conversion. So cash in foreign deposit, always take note, dapat naka-current exchange rate. Since Philippine peso na, pag ganun lang sa atin, pag identify. Now, cash in foreign deposit, as I have told you earlier, as part of our recap kanina, cash in foreign deposit, lalo na kapag restricted, they are considered part of non-current asset. They will not fall under cash, nor cash equivalent, and nor the current section, but in the non-current section. They can only be part of current asset if they are part of cash. Okay? Unless they are as long as they are restricted, okay, non-current yan. Hindi current. Okay, next. Petty cash fund. No other information again with petty cash fund. So automatic part of cash, automatic part of cash, current assets. Okay? Next, treasury bills purchased 2 months before January 31, 2020. Ayan, so treasury bills, an example of cash equivalent. Sabi dyan, purchased 2 months before January 31, 2020. So generally, pasok sa 3-month rule. So part siya ng cash equivalent. Then automatically, part na rin siya ng current assets. Next, we have treasury bills with 3 months remaining maturity on February 28, 2020. Purchased 2 years ago. Okay, yung 500,000 na yan, hindi yan mag-fall under cash equivalents. Additional input. I forgot to mention. Philippine Interpretations Committee provides in connection with PAS 7 na kapag yung cash equivalent o yung investment na qualified sana as cash equivalent, we purchased them long before the maturity period, hindi pasok doon sa 3-month rule. Ang sabi dyan, purchased 2 years ago. So pag pinurchase natin siya, mas malayo-layo pa sa maturity date niya, automatic, not part of cash equivalent. Unless, babalikan ulit natin yung concept, unless si treasury bill na yan, in substance, cash equivalent talaga for short-term cash commitment. Eh yun nga lang purchase 2 years ago eh. So doon pa lang sa general criteria, X na. Then the problem did not provide na for short-term cash commitment siya. So yan pa lang, X na sa cash equivalent. Pero pasok pa rin siya as current asset because 3 months remaining maturity. Eh, 3 months na lang, magmamature na siya. So realizable within 1 year na siya. So therefore, current asset, but not cash equivalent. Nagets ako? Kindly raise hand if nagets ako. Okay. Sige ha. I hope really nagets dyan ha. Next. We have time deposits. We have 2 time deposits. We have 6 months. We have 3 months. For the 3 months, we can say automatic. Part siya ng cash equivalent. Kasi generally, pasok doon sa criteria. 3-month rule. Wala tayong problema sa pagiging short-term and highly liquid niyan. Okay? So, pasok siya agad at cash equivalent, pasok ulit as current. Yung problema natin, yung time deposits na 6 months. Okay? 6 months. Ano yung exception sa cash equivalents? Sabi doon ng PIC, kapag part ng for short-term cash commitment siya, tapos subject to insignificant changes in value, and as long as proven na cash equivalent talaga siya, we consider as part of cash equivalent yung time deposit, yung item ng time deposit or other investment. However, sa problem, silent hindi binigay. The author of the problem provides that the time deposits na 6 months, walang ibang information eh. Considered lang siya as other item of current asset but not cash equivalent. So ganito na lang. Pag nag-solve ng problems, tignan kung may information, example kay time deposit na 6 months. Kasi sa 6 months pa lang, general rule, X na. Pupunta tayo sa exception. May information ba na for short-term cash commitment siya? Ba, kung wala, edi hindi siya part of cash equivalents. Part of current asset, yes. But for cash equivalents, hindi na. Okay? Take note ako dyan ha. Take note. The same analysis with money market instruments. Money market instruments are examples of commercial papers. So money market instruments, may 2 months, may 4 months. So ganun din. Si 2 months, automatic cash equivalent, automatic current asset. Pero si money market instrument na 4 months, the same doon sa time deposit na 6 months, walang information na binigay na for short-term cash, commitment siya. So part lang siya ng current assets. Okay, part lang siya ng current assets. Next, we have treasury warrants. Okay? As we have discussed before, part of cash yung treasury warrant. So automatic yan. Part of cash, part of current assets. Next, treasury bonds, 2 years maturity. So yan, 2 years maturity by the information itself. Okay? Neither cash equivalent, nor current asset. So yung 1 million, part ng non-current. Okay? Next, money orders. Money orders, part of cash, part of current assets. Automatic. Mortgage fund. Yeah, si mortgage fund is a cash fund. But because restricted siya, kasi nga, it is related sa 11% mortgage payable na 4 years. Okay? So automatic part of non-current assets. Okay, so ano ba talaga yung rule for cash funds? Okay? As long as the cash funds are part of current business operation, not initially established for long-term purposes, part siya ng ating cash. Pero just like that, na restricted siya for the mortgage payable only, do not qualify it as part of cash. Either current or non-current siya depending sa maturity ng payable. Kasi susundan ng mortgage fund yung classification ni mortgage payable. Since si mortgage payable is 4 years pa, so therefore non-current si mortgage payable, non-current pa rin si mortgage fund. Pero kung si mortgage payable is within 1 year na, within 1 year na rin yan si mortgage fund. Therefore, both could be qualified as part of current sections ng FS. Okay? So I hope nakuha ko dun ha. Next, another. Okay? Plant acquisition fund. Another exception to the rule of cash funds. Sa cash fund, example yung plant acquisition fund. Other term for plant acquisition fund, we have plant expansion fund. Yan. Or long-term asset funds. Kapag specifically, sabi ng PAS 7, kapag daw yung cash fund, set aside siya for purposes of long-term assets or business expansion, kahit yung intention natin to buy those long-term assets are already due within 1 year, hindi na natin considered as part of considered as part of cash yung plant expansion fund na yan. Rather, part siya ng non-current. Always non-current yan. So therefore, yung 1,300,000 non-current din yan. Matic na non-current. Next, payroll fund. So matic na si payroll fund for salaries and wages. So part of cash, part of current assets. Bond sinking fund. Ayan, 5-year, bonds payable. So automatic non-current. Dividend fund, interest fund, tax fund. Okay? Part of cash, part of current asset. Redemption fund. Take note, redemption fund ha, hindi redemption, redeemable preference share investment. Ibig sabihin, meron tayong redemption fund kasi nga nag-issue tayo ng preference shares na merong redemption period. Okay? Redemption period. Redemption fund are automatic non-current assets. Automatic non-current assets sila. Okay? Lalo na kapag long-term yung purpose. Long-term pa yung redemption period. Pero nagiging current sila kung yung redemption natin is within 1 year. Sa problem, sabi dyan, redemption period on January 31, 2022. So sa 2022 pa. Matagal-tagal pa from December 31, 2019. Yung current year natin dito is December 31, 2019. 2019 tayo ha. So yan. So yung 900,000 part of non-current. Insurance fund. Ayan. Insurance fund, 5-year non-life insurance, part of non-current. Then travel fund for business purpose, automatic cash, automatic current. So yan yung total natin for cash, cash equivalents, current assets, and non-current assets. If you wish, you can recompute. You want to, to check if tama yung computations ko. Nagets ako doon? Sa technique, sabay-sabay, walang iwanan. Okay. Kayo lang if you want to apply it. Sige. Moving on. Sample problem 2. So, sample problem 2, sabi dito, high-speed company reported the following for the year ended December 31, 2019. So we have cash equivalents of 2,500,000, accounts receivable 1,200,000, and accounts payable 500,000. Then we're given with the following 5 transactions. Then we are required for the adjusted amounts of cash and cash equivalents, accounts payable, and accounts receivable. For accounts payable, assuming daw yung transaction 4, ito yan, material or immaterial. Yan, material or immaterial. The same with 4 and 5. Accounts receivable, assuming daw si transaction 5 is material or immaterial. So how do we deal with this problem? First is tignan si requirements. Sabi dyan, adjusted. So therefore, we assume that these amounts na nasa ibabaw, nasa itaas, ano siya? Unadjusted pa. So therefore, we have to adjust with the amounts related sa number 1, 2, 3, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So let's proceed with transaction 1. Draw unrecorded check in the amount of 22,000 as payment to a supplier for the goods purchased on account. So meaning umutang tayo kasi on account. The check remained undelivered at the end of the reporting period. So we are the one who issues the check. We record and draw the check but no delivery of the check to the supplier. So therefore, si supplier hindi na-receive ang check. So therefore, initially, yung ating journal entry dyan, kasi na-record nga, we debit accounts payable and credit cash. But because of non-delivery, yung magiging adjusting journal entry natin, ganito. Debit ng cash or cash in bank and credit accounts payable. 22,000. Yan sa kikita, yung solution.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sige. Next. Next, we have number 2. Check issued, issued a check. Baliktad tuloy. Issued a check drawn in the amount of 14,000 to a servicing company. 14,000 account. So therefore, credit basis. The check was delivered on November 28, the same day it was drawn, but the check bears a date, January 31, 2020. So therefore, sa January 31 pa siya, may encash. The purpose of post-dating is to secure sufficient fund in the bank. So post-dated check, nag-issue tayo ng post-dated check. Okay, no adjustment made. So yung initial entry natin is debit cash, debit accounts payable and credit cash for 14,000. But because kailangan ng adjustment, no cash, actual cash payment, debit tayo ng cash or cash in bank and credit accounts payable, 14,000. Next, received a check as collection in the amount of 20,000 account from an auditing company. The check was received on November 30, but the check bears a date January 31, 2020. The intended post dating again to secure sufficient fund in the bank. So tayo naman this time naka-receive ng post dated check. Okay, so we can encash the check sa January 31, 2020 pa daw. Okay? So initially, we recorded a collection. So debit tayo ng cash, credit tayo ng since 20,000 account, so credit accounts receivable. So yung nangyari, we have to adjust debit accounts receivable and credit cash or cash in bank for 20,000. So proceed tayo sa item 4. Item 4, sabi dito, issued a check drawn in the amount of 5,000. Account. So accounts payable ulit. To a small supplier of spare parts. However, the check became stale when the supplier failed to encash the check within bank encashment period. So again, sino yung may kasalanan dito? Bakit naging stale check? Okay? Yung recipient. Yung recipient dito si small supplier. Tayo kasi yung nag-issue. The recipient fails to encash within the encashment period. So dalawa perspective natin ha, whether immaterial or material. So initially, whether immaterial or material, yung entry natin, initial entry is to record debit, accounts payable, and credit cash. Pero yung adjusting entry will depend on the assumption. Assumption 1, it is immaterial. So yung credit natin is other income. Debit, cash, cash in bank, credit, other income. But if material, the credit is accounts payable. So therefore, the company is still contemplating or anticipating that the supplier will run after him because of the non-encashment. So walang payment na nangyari. Then last, we have transaction 5. The transaction 5 received a check as collection in the amount of 7,000 from a customer. So this time, naka-receive tayo as tayo yung recipient, naka-receive tayo, trinit natin as collection. The check becomes stale when the company failed to encash the check within encashment period. So ibig sabihin, tayo as recipient talaga ang may kasalanan ng non-encashment. So two perspective, immaterial or material. But regardless of being material or immaterial, yung initial entry natin is debit, cash or cash in bank, and credit accounts receivable. Kasi nga collection. But because again, adjusting entry will differ sa assumption ng materiality, kapag immaterial, our debit is lost due to stale check and credit cash in bank. But for material, we debit accounts receivable and credit cash in bank. Okay? So to answer the requirements, yung mga adjusted amounts, sa requirement 1, ganito yung ating solution. The adjusted amount of 2,500,000, dagdagan ng i-adjust siya ng mga amounts from requirements from transactions 1 to 5. Okay? So yung adjustment sa number 1 may debit, so addition. Transaction 2 another debit, so addition. Adjustment 3 naka-credit siya, so deduction. Normal balance ng cash is debit ha. Then sa transaction 4 yung adjustment natin, whether material or immaterial, meron tayong debit ng cash. So additional 5,000. Then adjustment number 5, regardless if it is material or immaterial, we credited cash in bank, kaya deduction. So adjusted cash and cash equivalents, we have 2,514,000. The next, we have for requirement 2 and 3. Sa requirement 2 and 3, adjusted balance daw ng accounts payable. So yung 500,000, i-adjust natin ng mga adjustments related sa accounts payable. Okay. So adjustment number 1, credit. Normal balance of accounts payable, credit. So addition yung 22,000. Same goes with adjustment 2, credit. Addition of 14,000. But if number 4 is immaterial, wala tayong adjustment. Pero kapag material, meron tayong adjustment, 5,000. So requirement 2, accounts payable, adjusted balance, 536,000. But for requirement 3, 541,000. Now, proceed sa requirements 4 and 5. Correction, dapat hindi to accounts payable, dapat accounts receivable to. Okay? So, yung ano dito, adjusted balance of accounts receivable, 1,200,000. Adjust with adjustment 3 and adjustment 5. Adjustment 3, debit ng accounts receivable, additional 20,000. Normal balance is debit. Then yung adjustment 5, kapag immaterial, 0. Kasi nga loss ang nakalagay. Pero kapag material, accounts receivable, addition. So requirement 4, 1,220,000 lang, but requirement 5 will be 1,227,000. Okay? Nagets ako doon? Kindly raise hand. Okay. So last problem natin is sample problem 3. See. Analyze muna kayo ng konti. Let me excuse myself muna, ha? Let me excuse muna. Okay. Last problem natin for this discussion. Okay. So high-speed company reported the following balances for the year ended December 31, 2019. So we're provided with balances, cash and cash equivalents, 2,500,000. Current assets, 5,500,000. Non-current assets, 4,500,000. Current liabilities, 1,200,000. And non-current liabilities we have 1,500,000. Okay. Then the company also discovered and disclosed the following loan transactions for the year ended December 31, 2019. So first loan transaction, sabi dyan, 2 million loan from Max Speed Bank, payable at the end of 5 years. So ibig sabihin, ano siya, long-term loan. The agreement required 10% maintaining balance or 200,000, which can be withdrawn anytime. So meaning, the balance, the maintaining balance is not legally restricted. Okay, not legally restricted. Next, 1,500,000 loan from low-speed bank payable at the end of 4 years. Another long-term loan. The loan required 150,000 compensating balance, the withdrawal of which is restricted. So long-term loan, tapos legally restricted ang compensating balance. Then 500,000 loan from average speed bank payable after 2 years. So another long-term loan, the loan required 50,000 minimum balance, legally restricted as to withdrawal. Okay? So lahat long-term, dalawa ang legally restricted. Then number 4, included in the computation of cash and cash equivalents are 3 bank accounts. So we have Metrobank, 2 Metrobank accounts, 1 positive and 1 overdraft. Then BPI checking account, overdraft. So naisama daw dito. Meaning included, yung requirements sa atin, the adjusted amounts. The same analysis ng kanina sa problem 1. Sabay-sabay, walang iwanan. Pero may konting twist ako dito para mas mabilis yung analysis natin. Minodify ko. So how do we solve this one? Ito solution natin. So sabay-sabay lahat ng information kanina 1 to 4, then specify adjustment to cash, adjustment to current asset, adjustment to non-current asset, then adjustment to current liabilities, and adjustment to non-current liabilities. So yan. Balikan natin ang problem. Yung 2 million loan, yan yung liability natin, yung buong 2 million. Okay? 10% niyan is compensating balance. So therefore, the difference of 1,800,000, yan lang yung yan yung cash proceed. Supposedly. Pero both cash proceed and maintaining balance are presented as part of cash here. Reason, kasi si cash proceed, part of cash, si compensating balance, part din ng cash. Kasi nga, can be withdrawn anytime. Okay, so not legally restricted. So therefore, lagay na lang natin dito buong 2 million. The same with adjustment to current asset. Nandito rin si 2 million. Okay? Next. 1,500,000 loan required ng 150,000 compensating balance. The difference, the 1,350,000 ay ano siya? Cash proceed. Part siya ng cash, pero yung 150,000 legally restricted. So long-term yung loan, legally restricted pa, non-current asset si compensating balance. So yung 1,300,000, yan lang yung part ng cash. At yan lang din yung part ng current assets. Out of the 1,500,000. The 150,000 nandito sa non-current asset. In non-current asset. Next. 500 loan na 2 years. Minimum maintaining balance, legally restricted din. So therefore, non-current. Okay? The difference na 450, yun lang yung part ng cash. Yun lang din yung part ng current asset. Okay? Out of the 500,000. Then, the compensating balance na 50,000 nasa non-current asset. Next. Included daw in the computation of the cash equivalents. Yung magiging adjustment natin is BPI checking account kasi naisama siya. Kailangan ibawas siya kasi wala siyang kapareha na BPI account. So deduction from cash, deduction din siya from current assets. Deduction from both cash and cash equivalents and current assets, but addition siya sa current liabilities. Then yung adjustments to non-current liabilities, yung amount ng loan natin sa mga banks. So yung 2 million, buong 2 million, buong 1,500,000, and buong 500,000 are adjustment to non-current liabilities. Kasi nga, why non-current liabilities? 5 years, 4 years, 2 years. Yan. Ito yung ating adjusted amounts. Okay? Nagets ako? Can you raise hand? Okay. So if nagets ako, that ends our discussion for overview of cash and cash equivalents.